I heard my wife's laughter, coming from my son-in-law's kitchen. It cut straight through me, like a knife to the chest. I froze at the door, the birthday box in my hands suddenly heavy. Inside was a silver bracelet for my daughter, a small gift, but filled with a father's pride. That pride vanished the moment I realized that laugh wasn't beside me. It was behind the door, where only my daughter and her family should have been. I leaned toward the window. The yellow light spilled out, and there she was, the woman I had trusted for 25 years, my wife. She sat close to my son-in-law. They whispered, then laughed, like they shared some sweet secret. My heart raced. My head refused to believe it. I told myself maybe they were planning a surprise. Maybe I was wrong. But then I heard her voice. "He'll never suspect a thing," she whispered. And he laughed. "Not long now. Soon, everything will be ours." The blood in my veins froze. The box slipped from my hands. The bracelet rolled down the steps. It stopped under the cold light. I stared at it. The gift meant for my daughter. Now a witness to the worst moment of my life. I wanted to rush in, to scream, to ask why. But my legs were nailed to the ground. My throat locked shut. All I could do was stand there, listening to her laugh, in a kitchen that wasn't hers. In that moment I knew I had lost more than a wife. I had lost trust. I had lost the family I believed was unshakable. My life, the years of sweat on construction sites, the dinners I fought to keep alive, all of it. A joke behind my back. If only I hadn't come to that door tonight. Maybe I could have lived a little longer in that sweet illusion. But I heard it. I saw it. And from that moment on, I knew one thing for certain. My world had collapsed. There was no going back. My name is Michael. I'm 48 years old. My whole life has been tied to construction sites. The drills, the hammer strikes, the thick smell of cement in the air. I'm not a rich man, just the owner of a small company. Enough to pay my workers. Enough to give my family a steady home. Enough to say with pride, everything I have, I built with my own hands. The house we live in, I built it myself. Every wall, every doorway, every single brick. I poured more than sweat into it. I poured hope. To me, it wasn't just shelter. It was proof. Proof that I kept my promise. To give my wife and daughter a safe home no one could take away. My wife and I had been together 25 years. A quarter of a century. From the outside, people thought a marriage that long must be unbreakable. I once believed it too. I wasn't the romantic type. I forgot anniversaries. I wasn't good with sweet words. But I believed love didn't need to be shown off. Leave every morning for work. Bring home the money at night. Sit down to dinner on the weekends. That was enough. My daughter was my greatest pride. From the day she first held my hand, trembling as she walked into school, to the day she graduated, when my own hand trembled placing that blue gown on her shoulders. And on her wedding day, I couldn't hold back my tears. I thought my role as a father was complete, that I had walked her to the shore of happiness, and stepped back. My son-in-law, the man I once treated as my own son, I welcomed him into the family with full trust. I brought him into the company, taught him how to manage, how to calculate. I thought when I got old, I could hand over part of my legacy to him. That's how families grow stronger. The father passing down the craft, keeping it alive together. On the surface, our life looked peaceful. Every morning, I woke early, brewed a strong black coffee, turned on the radio for the weather and work plans. Every afternoon I came home, hung my dusty jacket on the rack, stepped into the kitchen where my wife's cooking still lingered in the air. Sunday nights, even after our daughter married, I kept the ritual of sitting down with my wife for dinner. I thought of it as a thread holding the marriage together. But I knew I wasn't perfect. I came home late, spent nights in front of the TV, silent. I didn't notice what my wife wore, didn't remember the last time I gave her a compliment. I always told myself, I'm busy with work, I'm doing this for the future. But maybe that was just an excuse. The truth is, I didn't know how to express my feelings. I thought silence was also love. But silence sometimes feels like emptiness. There were nights I found her sitting alone at the table, a bowl of rice gone cold in front of her. I'd come in, tired, and say, I'll eat later. She would only nod. No complaint, no reproach. I thought that was understanding. Looking back now, maybe it was distance. I once believed my marriage was solid as concrete, but it had cracks I couldn't see. Every time she turned away quietly, every dinner without laughter, every late-night glow from her phone that I pretended not to notice. They were bricks placed wrong. And me, a man who patched walls for a living, I didn't know how to fix my own home. I thought my wife was my teammate. We had gone through hard times together. The months we borrowed money for the mortgage. The nights she sat by my hospital bed after an accident on the site. I owe her a thank you far greater than I ever gave. But years passed. Familiarity turned to silence. And I never realized. Silence itself was the distance. If you had asked me a few months ago, I would have said I was happy, not rich. But I had a house I built with my own hands, a steady job, a wife of 25 years, a daughter I was proud of. I thought that was enough. But maybe the worst part of marriage isn't the fights. It's when the silence gets so deep. You can't even hear each other's hearts anymore. I thought I had built a strong home, but the signs were already there. Cold dinners, nights she stayed at our daughter's place, the distant look in her eyes when I talked about work. They were cracks, warnings. I didn't see them. Or maybe I didn't dare to. Because if I looked closely, I might have had to admit our marriage was no longer whole. So I chose to believe everything was fine. I chose to believe silence was love. And that belief blinded me. Until one night, when I heard that familiar laugh coming from my son-in-law's kitchen, everything shattered. They say concrete can hold hundreds of tons. I once believed my marriage could too. But it turns out, one wrong laugh was enough to break it all apart. The silver bracelet I bought for my daughter still sits in the drawer, unwrapped. Every time I open it, that cold light bounces off the metal. It reminds me of that night, the night at her door. I tried to hide it, but after that moment, I wasn't the same. I still woke early, still made coffee, still went to the site, but my mind was empty. When the masons asked how to lay a tile, I nodded and guessed. I didn't know what I'd just decided. All day long, her laugh played in my head, a laugh that should have belonged to family dinners. Now it echoed beside my son-in-law. At night, I tested her. "Did you go to our daughter's today?" I asked. She nodded, calm. "Yes, she asked me to help clean. Why?" Short, firm, like a door slamming shut. I forced a smile, pretended to believe her. Inside me, a storm was building. I couldn't sleep. When she finally slept, I slipped to the garage. I checked the bank app. The withdrawals were knives, a few hundred, a few thousand, all from the neighborhood near my daughter's place. My back went cold. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The next day, our daughter called. Usually she chatted away. That day her voice stumbled. "Dad, I'm so busy. I don't think I can come by." I tried to ask more. Her husband called in the background. She hung up quick. I sat with the phone dark in my hand, my chest heavy. That night, she told me she was going over to our daughter's. I wanted to go with her. She waved me off. "You stay home. I'll be back soon." I nodded, my heart pinched. I felt pushed out. I drove the neighborhood like a lost man. Parked at my daughter's house. Engine off. Sat in the dark. The kitchen light was on. I crept closer, my heart racing. The laugh came out again. My wife's voice. My son-in-law's voice. I pressed my ear to the door. "He'll never suspect a thing," she said, sure as a bell. "Not long now. Everything will be ours," he answered. They laughed. A long, familiar laugh, twisted now into something sharp. It felt like a blade slicing my chest. I stepped back, tripped on a stone. A toolbox clattered. The noise was dry and loud. I grabbed the tools and ran to my car. I shook all the way home. On the road, I wept. I don't even remember the last time I cried. Maybe when my father died. That night, I cried like a child left behind. One question kept eating at me. Does my daughter know? The next day, I watched her from across the office. She came by the site, avoided my eyes, said a few words, then left. I wanted to pull her close and ask, "Do you know about your mother and husband?" But my throat tightened. I was afraid that if I spoke, everything would fall apart. Days after that, I lived two lives. By day, work, smiles, small talk with the crew. By night, secret checks, bank statements, messages, then turning my face to the wall. Beside me, my wife slept soundly. Steady breath. But between us lay a canyon. Once I came home early. She shoved her phone into her pocket. "Who was that?" I asked. "An old friend," she said, without looking up. I wanted to grab it from her, see with my own eyes. But I let go. I was weak. A coward. Terrified that the truth, once revealed, would kill me on the spot. One evening, our daughter dropped by with pastries she'd tried to bake. I was glad. When I reached to touch her hand, she flinched. In her eyes, I saw something flash. Doubt, sorrow, guilt. I couldn't tell. But she was hiding something too. And that made my chest ache more. Insomnia took me. Nights I sat in the living room, the yellow lamp casting long shadows. So quiet, I could hear the clock tick. I looked at the house I'd built. Solid walls, sturdy frames. And the bitter truth hit me. I can build a strong house, but I cannot hold a marriage together. One night, I walked into the bedroom. She was at the mirror, fixing her hair, spraying perfume. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To meet a friend," she said, short and flat. I stood there, watching two reflections in the mirror. A woman preparing to leave, and a man behind her, already out of place in her life. That night, I lay in bed, listening to her even breaths. But I felt like a guest sleeping on someone else's couch. In my own house, on my own bed, beside the woman I had loved for 25 years. I was a stranger. And I knew. The quiet days were over. The bouquet I bought my wife had withered in the vase on the dining table. The red petals curled up, bowed over, like a mockery of my clumsy effort. I sat and stared at it for a long time, angry, powerless. A man who spent his life building houses for others couldn't keep his own home together. The house turned cold. She still came and went, still set dinner on the table. But between us, there was an invisible distance. When I tried to speak, she answered short, or nodded once, then fell silent. Many nights, she said she was tired and closed the bedroom door. Left me alone in the living room, listening to the TV drone on. No one really watching. I kept trying. One evening I suggested, "Why don't we go somewhere this weekend? Just the two of us. We haven't gone anywhere together in a long time." She looked up, surprised for a moment, then shook her head. "Our daughter needs me," she said. Those 3 words, "our daughter needs me," used to be my pride. Now they felt like a blade twisting in my chest. I didn't argue. I nodded and swallowed the disappointment. I sought comfort from my daughter. But she drifted away too. She called less, visited less. Once I asked, "Are you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yes, Dad, don't worry." Her eyes avoided mine. I saw something there, guilt or unease. I couldn't tell. Her hugs were quick, loose, hurried. Not like before. At the company, I began to lose control. A worker brought a contract by and asked, not me, but Mason, my son-in-law, "How should we handle this part?" I stood there and felt invisible. Mason gave the orders. I tightened my fist. My whole life, I'd been the one at the head of the crew. Now my own company listened to someone else. I went to the bank. The clerk hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Sir, the company account had several large transfers recently. The authorized signer was Mason." I went numb, my throat dry. I thanked him and walked out. The sun was bright outside, but I felt like I was walking in freezing rain. That night, the dining table was empty. She messaged, "I'm staying at our daughter's. I'll be back tomorrow." I opened a bottle and drank it down. The liquor burned my throat. My heart stayed cold. I looked at the living room. Our wedding photos on the wall, the curtain she chose, the table and chairs I built. And they felt like silent witnesses to a betrayal. The next day, I tried again. "If something's wrong, please tell me. Don't make me guess." She was silent for a long time. Then she turned away. "You worry too much. I'm tired. I'm going to rest." The bedroom door closed. I stood outside, feeling like a stranger abandoned in my own house. I started to lose control. I hired a private investigator. I felt small for doing it, but I needed the truth. A few days later, he handed me a packet of photos. My hands shook as I flipped them. There they were, my wife and Mason leaving a restaurant. Close together. Their looks were no longer ordinary. I dropped the photos. I was empty. I wanted to scream, to confront them, but my daughter kept coming into my mind. What would happen if she knew? I was trapped between 2 cliffs. One the harsh truth, the other the fear of hurting my child. I began avoiding home, stayed at the site longer, drove in circles, came home very late. Still, I faced her cool eyes, my daughter's distance, my own helplessness. Once I came home earlier than usual. I heard her in the kitchen, voice low, hurried. "He can't know." I froze, my heart hammered. When I walked in, she startled and turned. "You're home?" she said. I wanted to ask, but I swallowed it. I was afraid of the answer. I forced a smile. "Yeah, I got home early." In that moment, I understood. The truth was no longer distant. It lived in her breath, in her averted eyes. The breaking point came one night when I came home late. I opened the door and found her sitting in the living room, the yellow light falling across her face, cold. "Were you watching me?" she asked, voice steel. I stood frozen. Before I could answer, she stood and went upstairs. The door closed, left me alone in the dark. That night, I lay in bed, listening to her even breaths, but I felt like a guest sleeping on borrowed space. My ceiling held. The walls stood firm, but inside, everything had cracked. I heard the drip from the leaking faucet in the bathroom all night. Each drop on the cold tile felt like a knife in my chest. I stared at the ceiling and realized my marriage was bleeding, little by little, waiting to burst. And I knew the real storm had only just begun. I saw my wife place her hand on Mason's shoulder, a small gesture, but enough to bring my whole world crashing down. In the kitchen, where I had laid every single tile, they stood close, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "He'll never face it," Mason said, steady, sure. "You're right," my wife replied. "All his life, silence, and that silence is what killed this marriage." Then they laughed. The sound warped, echoing, turning the kitchen into a place I no longer knew. I clenched my fists until my nails nearly broke the skin. Every word cut deep. Silence killed this marriage. I wanted to rush in, to shout, to fight, but my legs wouldn't move. I had been silent too long. Even now, I couldn't find my voice. Just then, footsteps behind me. The door swung open. My daughter stood there, holding a bag of trash. She froze when she saw me standing still in the rain, her eyes wide. Frightened. "Dad." Her voice trembled. "What are you doing here?" I looked straight into her eyes, and in them I didn't just see surprise. I saw the truth. She knew. She had known all along. The bag slipped from her hands. Bottles, scraps, spilling across the wet ground. She didn't pick it up. She just stood there, shaking. Then she broke down in tears. I was stunned. The pain of betrayal shifted into something heavier. My daughter, the child I swore to protect, had carried this burden alone. I collapsed, rain mixing with my tears. I whispered, "I'm sorry for letting you bear it all by yourself." She threw her arms around me. Her cries tore through the storm. I tried to stop her. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared you would fall apart. I held her tight, feeling every tremor in her body. And for the first time in years, I cried out loud. Inside, my wife's voice cut through, cold. "Who's out there?" The door opened. She and Mason stepped out, stopping short when they saw me holding my daughter in the rain. The storm poured down, but their eyes were colder than the night. Mason shifted back, then straightened, regaining his composure. My wife didn't flinch. She looked at me, lips curling into a thin, cruel smile. I rose, holding my daughter close, my voice raw. "I heard it all. I saw it all. There's nothing left to hide." Mason smirked. "Good. Saves us the pretending." I clenched my fists, but my words still shook. "You didn't just steal my wife. You stole my daughter's peace." My wife folded her arms, calm, almost cold. "Don't put the blame on me. If this marriage had any breath left, no one could have come between us. You stayed silent for 20 years. Don't fault me for finding someone who listened." Her words cut. Cruel, but true enough to pierce me. Silence, my silence, had fed this disaster. My daughter cried harder, stepping between us. "Stop, please, both of you, stop." And in that moment, I saw it clear. My family wasn't broken by a single mistake. It had been crumbling for years. Through silence, lies, and betrayal, creeping into every corner of the home. I looked up at the dripping eaves. The storm hammered down, but not even the rain could drown the sound of my heart breaking. The home I built, brick by brick, strong as stone, collapsed from nothing more than a misplaced touch and a twisted laugh. The rain stopped, but the air still pressed heavy on my chest. I stood there, holding my trembling daughter. In front of me, my wife and Mason looked calm, as if they'd been waiting for this moment all along. My daughter buried her face in my shoulder, sobbing. "Dad, don't fight. I can't take it anymore." I stroked her hair, my voice breaking. "I promise no one will hurt you again." Then I lifted my head, looked straight at them. My voice was rough, but steady. "From now on, we're finished. I'll see a lawyer, and Mason." I stopped, eyes locked on him. "You're out of my company," he sneered. "Your company? Wake up, old man. Who do the workers follow? Who do the clients call? All you've got left is a name, Michael. An old man living in his own illusion. The words cut deep. But this time, I didn't bow. I had lost too much. There was nothing left to fear. My wife folded her arms, voice flat. You can take me to court, but you can't take back the years. 20 years of silence. I've had enough. Don't blame me for finding someone who listens. My daughter cried out, desperate. Mom, he was silent because he loved you. How could you say that? For a second, my wife lowered her eyes. Then she looked back up, cold. Silence isn't love. Silence is neglect. A man like that is no foundation. I didn't answer. Not from weakness, but because I understood. Her heart had betrayed me long ago. Any word now would only cut deeper. I guided my daughter to the car. Before stepping in, I turned back one last time. My voice was slow, every word heavy. I built this house with my own hands, and I'll leave it with my own feet. But the two of you will live forever with the sound of tonight's laughter. I slammed the car door shut and drove away. I met with a lawyer. The divorce papers were laid out. My hand shook with every signature, but I signed anyway. Each stroke of the pen felt like a blade, slicing through 20 years of marriage. That night, I lay on the same bed, listening to the wind through the cracks. Memories played back like an old reel. Her smile when I handed her morning coffee. The day we painted our daughter's room together. Her hand holding mine in the hospital when I worked myself sick. And then, the newest image intruded. Her hand on Mason's shoulder. That twisted smile. I sat up, clutching my head, choking for air. It wasn't that I no longer loved her. It was that the love itself was killing me. Night after night. Word spread fast. Mason strutted into the office like he owned it. One morning, during a meeting, he stood at the front, voice full of confidence. I sat in the back, silent. An employee turned to him with a contract. How should we sign this? Blood rushed to my face. The last time, I had stayed quiet. But not this time. I rose to my feet. He doesn't have the right to sign. My voice cut the room still. This company was built by me, and I have proof Mason stole from it. I laid the files on the table. Bank records. Investigators' photos. All clear. The room froze. Mason's face paled, though he forced a smile. You think you can take me down with a few cheap photos? I stared him down. No, I'll take you down with the truth. And the truth is never cheap. For the first time in years, I wasn't silent. I had found my voice again. In the end, the board forced Mason out. He threw me a look of hate, but I didn't care. I had lost my wife, but not the truth. And more important, I hadn't lost myself. My daughter still struggled with the pain. She tried to be strong, but I saw her eyes, red each night. One evening she asked, Dad, do you regret it, staying silent so long? I stopped at the sink, water running over my hands, and answered softly, Yes, but not for me. I only regret that my silence hurt you. She wrapped her arms around me, sobbing hard. I held her tight, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone in my pain. At the hearing, we sat across from each other. She wore a neat dress, her eyes cold as ice. The judge asked, Do you have anything to say before I give the ruling? I stood, voice calm. I once thought silence kept the peace, but silence only breeds distance. I have nothing more to say, only this. Don't let my daughter be trapped between us ever again. The room went quiet. She lowered her eyes, said nothing. Mason never showed. The verdict was given. It was over. No shouting. No anger. Just silence. This time, silence I chose. Later, I sat alone on the porch, listening to the wind in the trees. My daughter came out, placed a small box in my hand. Inside was the silver bracelet. Still new. Dad, she said, I'll keep it. But I want you to know, it's not just a gift to me. It's a reminder that you stood up, that you found your voice. I held it, my rough hand trembling. A single tear fell on the shining silver. But this time, it wasn't shame. It was release. I lifted my head, looked at the night sky, and for the first time in years, I breathed deep. I was no longer the silent man. I had lost my home, but I had found myself again. I once thought losing my marriage meant losing everything. But after the storm, I learned this. Sometimes loss is the only way to see what's truly left. The house feels emptier than ever. No familiar footsteps. No warmth of the woman who lay beside me for 2 decades. Just me and my daughter. But in that silence, I realized something. What's left is real. No more lies. No more deceit. Each morning, I brew 2 cups of coffee. One for me, one for her. We sit together, saying little. But this silence is different. It doesn't kill. It reminds us we're not alone. Once she asked quietly, "Dad, do you still believe in marriage?" I smiled, sipped the bitter coffee. I don't believe in love lasting forever anymore. But I believe this. If you speak, if you listen, if you have the courage to face each other, love can live long. I failed at that, and I paid the price. She squeezed my hand, whispered, "At least you never abandoned me." I looked at her. In her eyes, still red from tears, I saw a faint light. Small, but enough to hold me steady. Tonight, I sit on the porch. Wind moves through the trees. The yellow light spills across the small road. In my hand, the silver bracelet still shines, no longer just a gift, but a reminder. I fell once, and I stood back up. I think about the marriage I lost. The silence I once thought was safety, but was really poison, drop by drop. And I want to say this to anyone still awake, watching a story like mine. If you are silent in your marriage, remember this. Silence won't save a home. It only widens the distance. It dries up the love. And one day, you may realize you lost everything before you ever spoke a word. Don't fear speaking. Don't fear showing your heart. Sometimes, a single honest word at the right moment can save a lifetime. I look up. The night sky is clear now. No more rain. My daughter steps out, sits beside me. She plays a quiet old song I used to love in my youth. The music drifts through the air, simple, but somehow it softens me. After everything, maybe I don't have a whole family anymore, but I still have the chance to live true, to listen, to love, honestly. This house, once a grave for silence, has become the place where I learned to speak again.